What if I told you that one man held the entire state of California hostage with nothing more than a gun, a knife, and a series of terrifying letters? What if I told you that even after more than 50 years, no one knows his real name? A ghost who bragged about his killings, mocked the police, and promised more bodies. This is not fiction. This is not a movie. This is the story of the Zodiac Killer, one of America's darkest and most chilling mysteries. Fade into suspenseful background music. It's July 4th, 1969. While America celebrated its Independence Day with fireworks, two young lovers, Darlene Ferrant and Mike Mageau, sat in a quiet parking lot in Vallejo, California. But instead of fireworks, their night ended with gunshots. A man crept up to their car. No words, no warning, just bullets. Mike barely survived, but Darlene wasn't so lucky. She became the first widely recognized victim of the man who would later be known only as the Zodiac Killer. But this was no ordinary murderer. He didn't just kill. He wanted fame. He wanted fear. And he wanted everyone to know his name. Just a month later, on August 1st, 1969, three newspapers in California, the San Francisco Chronicle, the San Francisco Examiner, and the Vallejo Times-Herald, received letters. Handwritten, tainted with arrogance, and each signed with a strange symbol, a circle with a cross through it. The letters claimed responsibility for the murders. But there was something even more chilling, a cipher, a puzzle made of strange symbols that the killer demanded be published in the papers. If you don't print this, he warned, I will go on a killing rampage. It wasn't just murder anymore. It was a game, a twisted game between a faceless killer and the entire state of California. Unlike most criminals, the Zodiac wanted attention. He demanded it. Every letter, every thread was designed to keep the spotlight on him. He taunted the police. He mocked the detectives. And he even teased the public with his kill count, signing off his letters with numbers like they were trophies. The Zodiac wasn't hiding in the shadows. He was orchestrating his own horror show in the front pages of America's newspapers. The first cipher was cracked within a week by a schoolteacher and his wife. But instead of revealing the killer's identity, it only deepened the mystery. The message read, I like killing people because it is so much fun. It is more fun than killing wild game in the forest, because man is the most dangerous animal of all. Imagine being an ordinary citizen in 1969, opening your morning paper and reading that chilling confession, knowing the man who wrote it was still out there. The Zodiac didn't stop. September 27th, 1969, Lake Berryessa, a young couple, Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard, were enjoying a picnic when a hooded figure approached. His costume was bizarre, a black executioner-style hood with the Zodiac symbol stitched across the chest. He tied them up, stabbed them multiple times, and then left his mark by carving his symbol into Brian's car. Cecilia died. Brian survived to tell the story. This attack was unlike anything the police had seen. The Zodiac had escalated, from shooting in the shadows to boldly confronting his victims in broad daylight. And he wasn't finished. October 11th, 1969. San Francisco. A cab driver named Paul Stein was shot in the head by his passenger. This wasn't a lover's lane. This wasn't a park. This was in the middle of a busy city street. And yet, somehow, the killer slipped away. The chilling part? Just days later, the San Francisco Chronicle received another letter from the Zodiac. Inside was a piece of Paul Stein's bloody shirt. It was his way of saying, yes, it was me, and you still can't catch me. By now, fear had gripped California. Parents refused to let their kids walk alone. Lovers avoided quiet parks. And the police were swamped with false leads, crank calls, and terrified citizens claiming to have spotted the Zodiac. The media fueled the fire. Every headline screamed his name. Every update pushed his legend further. But through it all, the killer seemed to thrive. Each letter was a performance. Each cipher, a challenge. And each murder, a message. I am smarter than all of you. Over the years, investigators identified several suspects. Arthur Lee Allen, a man with a disturbing past, strange behavior, and some circumstantial evidence linking him to the crimes. Richard Gaikowski, a journalist whose appearance and handwriting bore eerie similarities to descriptions of the Zodiac. Lawrence Kane, identified by one of the survivors and with ties to areas where the Zodiac struck. And yet no hard evidence, no DNA match, no confession. Each time police thought they were close, the case slipped through their fingers. By the mid-1970s, the Zodiac's letters slowed. The murders stopped, and like smoke in the wind, he vanished. But the fear never did. Decades later, the letters, the ciphers, and the taunts still linger. A chilling reminder that somewhere out there, the Zodiac Killer may have walked free. But here's the part that still haunts investigators to this day. New evidence has surfaced. DNA technology has advanced. And some believe the Zodiac's identity might finally be within reach. Could the mystery finally be solved after more than 50 years? Or is the Zodiac Killer still hiding in plain sight, laughing at us all? What if the man behind America's most terrifying killing spree was already questioned by police, stared at by survivors, and even sat across the table from detectives, yet still walked free? What if the Zodiac wasn't just one man, but many? Tonight, we dive deeper into the shadows. Let's rewind to the early 1970s. The Zodiac has vanished from the headlines. No letters, no murders, just silence. But behind closed doors, detectives were circling suspects. Arthur Lee Allen, a man who seemed ripped straight out of a nightmare. He was a convicted child molester. He owned a Zodiac brand wristwatch with the same symbol the killer used. He lived near Vallejo, ground zero for the Zodiac's first attacks. And here's the bone-chilling part. One survivor, Brian Hartnell, stabbed at Lake Berryessa, told police the killer's voice matched Allen's. When detectives searched Allen's home, they found weapons, disturbing books, and even tapes about young victims. Yet handwriting tests ruled him out. Fingerprints didn't match, and when DNA was later tested, it wasn't him. How could a man so perfect as a suspect not be the Zodiac? Was it a police mistake? Or was Allen just the easiest man to blame? But Allen wasn't the only shadow. Richard Gaikowski, a radical journalist. His co-workers whispered about his obsession with ciphers, violence, and even the Zodiac case itself. One witness swore his face was burned into her memory as the killer. Lawrence Kane, a man with brain damage, known for stalking women and identified by one of the Zodiac's surviving victims. He lived just blocks away from where a Zodiac victim once disappeared. And then, the most bizarre theory of them all. Some believe multiple people carried out the killings, each crime too different in style, too inconsistent to be the work of one man. Was the Zodiac a single genius? Or a group feeding off fear, hiding behind one name? Fast forward to the 21st century. Cold cases everywhere are being cracked wide open with DNA. The Golden State Killer was caught after 40 years using genetic genealogy. Families found closure. Killers were unmasked. Naturally, all eyes turned to the Zodiac. In 2021, a team calling themselves the Case Breakers claimed they had finally identified him. Gary Francis Post. A military man, a violent temper. Old photographs seemed to match police sketches. Friends later admitted that he bragged about crimes in his final years. But here's the catch. Law enforcement never confirmed it. DNA didn't match. And once again, the Zodiac slipped back into the mist. So was Gary Post the man who haunted California? Or just another name tossed into the endless pit of speculation? Even today, the Zodiac's puzzles remain unsolved mysteries. One of his infamous ciphers, the 340-character code, stumped experts for over 50 years. But in 2020, a group of code breakers finally cracked it. It didn't reveal his name. It didn't reveal his location. It only mocked us again. The message read, "I hope you are having lots of fun in trying to catch me. I am not afraid of the gas chamber because it will send me to paradise all the sooner." Half a century later, his words still cut deep. The Zodiac didn't just kill people. He killed peace of mind. For decades, families kept doors locked tighter. Lovers avoided dark corners of the city. And every strange man in a dark hoodie seemed like a threat. Unlike other serial killers, the Zodiac didn't want money. He didn't want to escape. He wanted immortality. He wanted to live rent-free in America's nightmares forever. And maybe he succeeded. But here's where things get darker. Unreleased police files suggest the Zodiac may have claimed more victims than we ever knew. Some cold cases across California bear his handwriting, his patterns, his shadow. And whispers say his DNA is still locked away in evidence boxes, waiting for one final test. So here's the question. What if the Zodiac Killer was never just a man of the past, but a ghost still haunting us today? What if the Zodiac didn't vanish in the 70s, but kept killing in silence? What if the bodies piled higher than we ever imagined, hidden in plain sight, erased from the headlines, but never from his legacy? Tonight, we confront the murders you were never supposed to hear about. San Francisco, 1970s. The Zodiac letters had gone quiet. The world thought the nightmare was over. But in police stations up and down California, case files kept piling up. Unsolved stabbings, random shootings, victims pulled from cars, highways, and dark alleys. One case, the murder of a young woman near Modesto. A chilling note was found nearby, echoing the Zodiac's taunts. Another, a hitchhiker killed near Santa Rosa. The binding ropes and knots? Nearly identical to those described by surviving Zodiac victims. Detectives whispered among themselves. Were these new victims Zodiac's handiwork? But without DNA, without confessions, the truth slipped through their fingers. Each case faded into the fog, filed away as unsolved, or maybe deliberately buried. Here's the disturbing truth. Police departments back then didn't always share information. Vallejo had their files. San Francisco had theirs. Napa had another set. What if the Zodiac knew this? What if he played jurisdictions against each other, striking in new territories where detectives weren't even aware of his past crimes? Some retired officers even admitted they were told to stay quiet. Higher-ups feared that connecting too many murders to Zodiac would cause panic, or worse, reveal the embarrassing truth that he had outsmarted them for decades. And that raises the question, did the Zodiac stop killing, or did we stop counting? In evidence lockers today are blood-stained clothes, hair fibers, and partial fingerprints locked away for over half a century. Forensic technology is now light years ahead of what detectives had in the 1960s. With modern genealogy and DNA tracking, killers from the past have been exposed, Ted Bundy's victims identified, the Golden State Killer unmasked, cold cases cracked after 50 years. So why not the Zodiac? Some insiders claim the reason is chilling. The DNA samples may be too degraded, too contaminated, or maybe, just maybe, the truth they'd reveal is too explosive. Imagine if the results pointed to someone powerful, someone untouchable, someone hiding in plain sight. Would the world even be allowed to know? The Zodiac wasn't just a killer. He was a puppeteer. He didn't just strike victims. He struck fear itself. Even today, survivors describe how they still glance over their shoulders. Families of victims still live with the ache of never knowing. And ordinary Americans, half a century later, still whisper about a faceless man who might have been their neighbor, their coworker, even their relative. The Zodiac may have taken fewer lives than some serial killers, but he took something far greater, certainty. Because no matter how many suspects we line up, no matter how many theories are written, no one can say, with 100% truth, we caught him. And so here we stand, decades later, with fingerprints, handwriting, DNA, and suspects, yet no conviction, no trial, no confession. The Zodiac Killer, the faceless ghost of California, remains the ultimate question mark. But maybe that's exactly what he wanted. Not to be caught, not to be punished, but to live forever in the shadows of our imagination. Because maybe the most terrifying part isn't that he got away. Maybe the most terrifying part is that he's still out there. This was the story of the Zodiac Killer. But remember, monsters don't always vanish. Sometimes they adapt.